Accessing library computer data.
The world doesn't always adhere to logic. And sometimes when you're lost, you're found.
Hey everybody, welcome back to our coverage of Star Trek Discovery. Right now we're up to the penultimate episode. You wait every season so you can say penultimate. We're up to the 13th episode of the second season. Aired on April 11th, 2019. It's called Such Sweet Sorrow. And I guess according to the news today, you can call it Such Sweet Sorrow Part 1 because it's going to be a two-parter continued next week. Written by Michelle Paradise, Jenny Lumet, and Alex Kurtzman. Directed by Olatunde Osunsanmi. In this episode, when the USS Discovery's crucial mission does not go according to plan, Burnham realizes what must ultimately be done. The crew prepares for the battle of a lifetime as the Leland's control ships get closer and closer. We're joined by Clay. Clay, how are you?
Good. It's interesting that they officially dubbed this a Part 1 and Part 2, as we just had that conversation, I think, last week, about how these shows don't really do that anymore. No,
it's going out of fashion, although I guess maybe you could say a lot about how this episode in particular works only really as a 1 out of 2-parter, I suppose. And I don't know if this is going to tie into our criticism of Star Trek 2-parters in general. If it is, I hope to God it goes the other way, where the first part is the bad part and the second part is the fantastic part. Let's see. So we're going to take a break. Me and Clay are going to play an audio clip, and then we're going to come back and we're going to break down Such Sweet Sorrow.
Analysis.
Given recent events, I believe the sphere data may be the cause.
It's protecting itself. We tried to delete the data. It wouldn't let us.
If the data has merged with Discovery, that would explain its ability to use Discovery's resources to ensure its survival.
Are you saying we won't be able to destroy the ship? Leland's ships are now in range, Captain.
It's a title that does wonders. I know post-production for this is going to be pretty rough with so many sibilant sounds in the title. But, Clay, I thought we'd open this one up by... I have not warned you about this, but we'll see how well it goes. We'll do a little bit of role play about how this episode goes, okay? So I'm going to go first, and you can just kind of improv off me. We'll bounce back and forth.
Yes, and.
Clay, goodbye.
Yes, and goodbye to you as well.
Goodbye, Clay.
I'm not leaving you.
Goodbye.
I can't. We don't have time for goodbyes, Wes. We have a job to do.
Goodbye.
I've always, it's been a pleasure to do the show with you. Goodbye.
So, my main criticism of this episode is that I thought it was boring as fuck, and I can't believe pretty much outside of the first 5 or 10 minutes is everyone saying goodbye to characters either that we know or characters we've never heard of, like Stamets' brother or whatever the hell he was talking to. I thought, I don't know. I thought I would have put this up there with one of the worst episodes of the season, I think, just because I could not believe that they, with so many questions that we have left, you don't learn anything in this one. Like, the only thing you learn is that the sphere data has taken over Discovery and they can't blow it up, so they have to do the thing that you actually proposed last week where they're just going to jump into time and get rid of it that way.
Yeah. I didn't have a ton of time to sit with this episode. And I didn't hate it, and I think I didn't hate it for, like, surface-level reasons. I think mainly because it didn't, even though it didn't really move the story forward, it also didn't just crash and burn everything. Like, it kind of smoothed a few things out, but it felt like it was doing so in service of getting to the last episode. Like, I don't know if they need to rebuild a time suit. That seems a little like, I don't know. I feel like there's a more organic way you could do that instead of just being like, oh, we have the blueprints for this one-of-a-kind time suit that we didn't even know existed until 4 episodes ago. Let's just build another one.
We're actually doing pretty well in our predictions, I think, all things considered, about how, and maybe that's not really, maybe a lot of people are, obviously, and we're not really anything special, but I think that maybe it's predictable and not like you kind of know where all the pieces have to go with the show at this point. And I think that we kind of got a few of them. We were confused about a couple of them, but I don't think there's been any surprises with the way that this one has gone. And I guess if my take about this episode is wrong, I have seen a few reviews online that people think that the show does land its emotional stuff every once in a while, and I just like strongly disagree with that. Like I don't know. I know that's all subjective and it's up to you, like whatever makes it work for you. I don't believe any of the character relationships in this show. I don't buy any of these moments. And even with characters that I do believe in, like I understand what I should be talking about with Stamets and Culber, they don't talk about anything. They talk about literally nothing in their interactions with each other. And I watched this one.
It's all about what they don't say, Wes.
I suppose that's true. You got to look in between the trees to see the atoms or whatever that make up everything. I think that before I bounce it back to you, it's just because I don't really, the canon stuff isn't all that interesting to me anymore. But what's most interesting to me about this show is the way that I feel while I'm watching it. And I would just describe my feeling to be the eye roll emoji endlessly. Like every time any scene comes up and two people are talking, I'm just, eye roll. The crew is going to give a send off in the hallway to Burnham saying, we're all going with you. Eye roll. That's my whole thing.
Yeah, I thought some of that stuff was correct. Like, I agree with what you're saying. I think some of it works. Like, I didn't really have a problem with the last scene with Pike on the bridge of the Discovery, because I thought that one at least they kind of earned. Even if him going around the room was like, you're super important. You saved my life. You filled in for that other person. Nice to meet you for the first time here. I'm sure you're really good at your job. You know, like it was sort of like reintroducing everybody or introducing everybody for the first time. I thought that scene was fine.
But you also know that we know on a meta level that Pike is not coming back. So his goodbye feels like it means something. Right.
However, some of the other ones, it was just, there were so many of them stacked on top of each other. Like, I actually didn't even, well, I don't know. I'm on the fence about the writing letters home part. Probably didn't need it, but at the same time, it was more character work than they gave to most of those characters than they have the whole season. Even if it's just like base level character stuff of them talking to someone off screen you've never met.
Yeah.
The thing in the hallway was pretty hokey. The scene with Tyler and Burnham I thought was garbage. They just, I don't know. They want you so hard to care about their relationship, and they've done no work to make you do that except swell the music up and put them in front of the 21st century version of that one window on Deep Space Nine that everybody has their
heart to hearts
heart to hearts in front of. There's lots of little stuff like why does Georgiou tell Pike she's from the mirror universe right before they beam off the ship?
Just to get his wink, I guess. Just to show that he knows.
Sure.
Just to ruin the fact
that I feel like that implies that they've had some sort of relationship, or which they haven't.
No.
Like, it's not like they've spent the season sparring with each other.
Right.
And then you're tying this little bit up by saying like, oh, by the way, I'm from the mirror universe. And he's like, what are you talking about?
Because it's not like they've played off as them as old friends. I think when they introduce each other, he's aware of her just by her name, and he's never met her or something that. So it's not like he's been going through the season thinking that this was the Georgiou that he knows, and this is the reveal that she finally like tells the truth to him, and he's like, I knew that the whole way around. And you go, that paid off or something. It's really just kind of a throwaway gig or gimmick.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I didn't mind it as much just because, like, what else are you gonna do with this episode? I guess it's clearly a setup for the next one, and so they're just kind of putting all the pieces in place for the payoff, hopefully, in the next episode. So I kind of get why it was more subdued and talky, but at the same time, yes. You would think that in the context of the season, it would be like a very high point of stress. So I don't know. I didn't hate it. I think the Enterprise looked great. It's just another check mark in the box of I wish they would do a Pike and Spock Enterprise show.
Yeah. I like the Enterprise set as well. I'm surprised Discovery's set actually doesn't look more like the Enterprise's set. But I think you spend so little time with the Enterprise, it almost doesn't even register to me as the Enterprise in a lot of ways. So it's just like another ship that you're dealing with, and I think that where do I want to start?
One other thing I hated the Sarek and Amanda scene.
It's really bad, isn't it?
Not only is it bad, but like it's just another instance of how much this show has no regard for space. Because how the fuck did they take a shuttlecraft to wherever the fuck Discovery is? How did they figure out where they were? Discovery says that they have no contact with Starfleet. I guess they just used their minds or something.
Yeah, they have the
mind melt. And by that metric, do it in the Ghost world like they did in season 1. Yep. I was 100% sure that was going to be the case, where it was like, oh, they have this scene and it turns out they're not really there. Like they, all those mind sequences they did with her and Sarek in the first season.
Yes.
That at least would make sense. I mean, it was good enough for Star Wars. Why can't they do it in this one?
I thought that was not only just a bad idea, I thought it was actually kind of a betrayal of the relationships that those characters had to this point. Yeah. I thought that Amanda makes sense, but Sarek having like oh geez guys, like I'm sorry I can be such a dick moment was not like an appropriate thing for Sarek, I don't think.
I did like, though, at the end of that scene, after he just poured out as much of his heart as was acceptable by Vulcan standards to Michael, and she's like, please take care of Spock, and he was basically like, I'm not gonna do that.
You are my daughter. I didn't like any of that. It ties into the whole, if my understanding of those characters, if Burnham starts crying in front of them, Sarek should be embarrassed by the whole thing as much as a Vulcan can be embarrassed, and her mother should be the human empathy part. Like I don't understand why they just had Sarek do that way. And I think it's really it's to have these emotional. The show believes that these emotional moments really pay off, and they put zero work into any of it. Like
they're writing for the scene, they're not writing for the characters.
Right, they're writing because Burnham has to say goodbye to these people, and if these were characters totally divorced from what we already know about them, this is probably the kind of scene you would have. Unfortunately, we have all these history and these 2 seasons worth of interactions with Sarek and Burnham, and it doesn't feel like it amounts to anything. And I think that you were saying that like this episode should have been your understanding of why it's so sort of talky and things like that. I think that what I think is interesting about the show, and this goes back to the first season, is that the show really doesn't want to show you the bad guys in their storylines. Yeah. They really they don't want to show you the Klingons. They don't really want to show you the Mirror Universe people. They don't want to show you what Control is up to. And so every conflict that the characters have is them just sort of talking about it and waiting for something to get to them. And you're never like cutting over to Leland on the Control ship, seeing what he's up to or what he's plotting or what he's doing. And you never have any real interactions with them. The only interaction she has here is like a dream or future sequence where she sees Leland walk onto the bridge Terminator style and just mow down everybody. That doesn't tell you anything about it. I'm still confused about what Control needs this data for.
Oh, 100%. Even when they recapped it, I was like, I still don't understand what they need this for. Like, there's no version of the sentence, Control needs the data, the sphere data, so it can become sentient, that will make sense to me. Because in this one, I think they said achieve consciousness. And it's like, he's controlling bodies and he's making rational decisions. Yeah, what more does he need? Yeah. Not to mention the fact, I don't even know what's on this fucking data drive. It could just be old issues of Hustler or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
In which case, I understand why he's after it.
But the other problem with so what do you think about the villain point, I guess, before we move on to that? Did you notice that, or you think I'm off base?
No, I think you're right. It does. They do have this weird aversion to giving you the bad guy's point of view, and I don't mean that from like a sympathetic point. I mean like what you're saying, where like, there's no real understanding of what the antagonist is after, other than, I mean, the antagonist itself is a MacGuffin, right? Because it doesn't really have any weight to it.
No.
Other than being then going after 2 to 3 other MacGuffins at the same time. I don't know if you can hear that siren, but it's very loud.
No, well, they haven't. They haven't.
I apologize.
But it's these hot takes of burning down the house.
I know. Yeah.
What they haven't done is, like, are they ever going to clarify why Control thinks that what it's doing is the right way to go about things? They haven't even tried. They've never tried that. Why haven't they explained that yet? And I guess this all ties into the point. If you're going to have an episode like this, you are jam-packing the finale with so much stuff that needs to be explained. Like,
yeah, they still have 2 other signals that they have to fire off.
Yeah. Well, do you think they have to, or once they find the third one, they'll just be like, oh, this is the reason that well, I guess they do. In order for Burnham to go back and want to make those signals, they have to see what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they have to do 2 signals. I wonder if someone in the writer's room at this point was like, 7 was kind of much. Maybe we should have done like 5. Yeah, they have to do 2 more signals. They have to, I mean, I guess they don't have to pay anything off with why Control wants this shit, because they've been operating from the standpoint of the fact that it wants it is enough.
Right.
Which
is that enough? Is it?
Yeah, I don't know. Not. I yes and no. I mean, I guess it depends on how you look at it, because. I think you could make the same argument about, let's say, the first Avengers movie, right? Because you've got, it's basically Loki showing up and wanting the cosmic cube or whatever, and then he just brings all these aliens along, and then the Avengers have to team up to fight the aliens. And you don't really spend a lot of time with the aliens; they're all basically just cannon fodder. And Loki gets, minimal screen time, but the difference is there, what he's about, and he's charismatic, and he can do some heavy lifting for what isn't there as far as motivation goes. And that movie is it's not about the villain, it's about the heroes coming together and all that kind of stuff. So it makes sense that you spend more time with the hero. But I don't really get that. I think that's what they're trying to do here. But I don't think that they're paying off or doing their character stuff strong enough to really hold it for me. Mm-hmm. Because the character work just turns into a bunch of people getting kind of weepy over each other.
Yeah,
and I don't know. It's not that stuff doesn't land. Every now and then a little bits land, but I don't think overall that it's super convincing.
Well, so everyone's getting weepy here, right?
Mm-hmm. Also, do Amanda and Sarek, do they swing by Spock's quarters too, or do they just fuck off after they talk to Burnham? He's on the ship.
We don't get that scene.
I'm surprised. We get a scene with literally everybody else. Yeah. There is no saying goodbye scene that Spock does. There's not one.
Yeah, I think it ties in. I still don't really I see Sarek for some reason as Sarek. I don't really still see Spock or the Enterprise as the real versions of those things for some reason, but I do it for Sarek. I don't know. It's probably because we spent more time with him or something, but so the episode's been pretty weepy, right? It's been a lot of these goodbye things. This to me, unless this is horrific writing that when they resolve this season, all of these goodbyes have been meaningless, and this was a total waste of an episode because no one is separated from each other anymore. Mm-hmm. Or they if this is not the worst writing I've ever seen in my life, they have to do something really interesting for a Star Trek finale next week. They have to basically reboot the series in the middle of it, because Burnham saying goodbye and all these things, like the crew going off for this great sacrifice, if this doesn't pan out, this has just been a total waste of time with all the saying goodbyes, because everything is going to go back to its normal thing next season. Or if this does change everything, that's pretty remarkable. And I think that this part of the episode would seem better to me at that point if things changed. I still think it's badly written, but if they do reboot the series and they launch this ship and the crew into the future 1,000 years, maybe it makes a little bit more sense to me than what it is now, where I'm kind of assuming that they're going to reset everything, because I don't know if the show has the balls to do something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I have to hope that they're going to, because I think that's the only way this episode is worth anything. Because I think if you are, unless you are actively taking them off the board and jumping them into the future, then it's going to seem like a pretty cheap waste of time when you go back and if you ever go back and watch it again. Like I can buy all those goodbyes and stuff if they are actually going to jump everyone into the future. But I have this, I don't know. I've got this sneaking suspicion that it's not going to happen because I feel like
Spock is still there, which is a problem.
Spock is still there, which is a problem. And also, I have this sneaking suspicion she's going to use the time crystal to stop Leland from killing everybody. Because she and one interesting thing I did find interesting was that she and Jet Reno have the same vision. And about a torpedo or something being lodged in the hull of the Enterprise. Yeah. Which I thought was a nice way of reinforcing that what they were seeing is what it was going to happen.
Yep. We're doing a lot of content where the future is determined already in our sci-fi coverage. Yeah.
Well, I think they are putting so much emphasis on this idea that the future is determined that the only thing to do is to have someone change the future.
Mm-hmm. So the only thing that I can think about Jet Reno is that her vision of the future is going to cause her to realize what happens, and she's going to sacrifice herself and die saving the Enterprise in the future.
Yeah, it's got to be something like that. I mean, it has to be something like that. I think if that is what happens, then I could see them actually jumping everybody into the future. I don't know. I feel like the natural ending, because it's like what do you let's say for a minute that they don't jump everybody into the future and that they do just reset stuff.
Yeah.
What are you really accomplishing then, story wise? Like what is if you just have everybody maintain their status quo. Except Control is now not around.
Yep.
It's a very underwhelming end, and it's kind of like, well, what else do we do?
Well,
it feels very anticlimactic.
So they've got a couple things that they have to do here, right? They have to wrap up this season's story with Control.
Yeah.
All of the PR propaganda that they've been spitting out is that the way the season resolves will resolve continuity issues with the other series, right? Mm-hmm. I don't see either. The only way that I see continuity being retroactively fixed here is if they actually jump backwards in time. Because if the ship disappears and goes into the future, it's not like these events never happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it still doesn't fix the fact of all this tech and all this stuff still existed. And again, for people who don't hear me, I don't really care about that. But if the writing production team is insisting that the canon stuff is going to be reconciled by this by this resolution, I don't see how that's possible with the way that they've drawn this up.
Because I mean the blueprints for a spore drive still exist. And the blueprints for, apparently, it's very easy to make a time suit.
Right, and Michael Burnham still exists at this. Like, Michael Burnham just disappears. It's not like Michael Burnham never existed, and that's why Spock, for example, never mentions her or anything like that.
Right,
like,
right.
Burnham and all that stuff is still here, and so I don't know. And I'm not judging it based on that. I'm only just saying that, like, I don't think that there will be... I'd have a hard time seeing a resolution to this story that really reconciles a lot of stuff, or has it satisfactory ending? Like, you can't have both of them, I don't think. And so
I think jumping them into the future is as much of a fix of continuity as you can expect.
Okay.
I think from the standpoint of where if that's what they do, they are not thinking about it the way that you are thinking about it. I think for them, just taking all of these pieces off of the pre-TOS board fixes continuity because, well, then they're not there.
Right, they can't bump into TOS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which I understand. I think you are operating on the level that I was operating on about the hologram video framing Spock not making any sense. In that, I don't think that it making sense is 2 levels deeper than they want to go with it.
Right.
Because I think I think if they were to do that, it would be explaining stuff that for diehard Star Trek fans, and I think it comes back to what we've talked about before, is like, who exactly are they aiming this show at? Because if you want to explain it for diehard Star Trek fans, then yes, what you're saying is correct, and they should probably jump back and whatever. But if you're explaining it to newer or less diehard Star Trek fans, just jumping them into the future is enough, because then it explains, well, I mean, that's why none of these things exist.
Right. Or it's just it's a novel idea if you're unfamiliar with the franchise.
Yeah. And, you know, it's tough because I like it. I like the idea. I just kind of wish they did it like in the 3rd episode of the 1st season. You know, because it would fix a large kind
parts
of fixes everything, and it doesn't hinder you story wise by doing all this stuff. I mean, we wouldn't have had Anson Mount as Pike, but that's unfortunate. But you know, I don't know. It sort of is, if they do that and this show continues for its 3rd season as Star Trek Discovery in the far, far future, do you think that is them admitting that they made the wrong choice for the first 2 seasons?
I think it is.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You don't think it was always secretly the plan to do this?
No, I would never. Yeah. Well, I guess maybe that's not so. That ties into. I don't want to completely abandon that point, but this will tie into it. What do you think about them tying all the short treks into what happens in a season?
I don't like it personally.
It's the opposite of what I wanted from the short treks. Like, and I was fine with them being standalone stories that I can appreciate on its own. But now, if they do this again, I have to think about what the future short treks and how they tie into a series are going to be. It's like I don't want to do that, and it also. But the reason I bring that up is because they do seem to plan very heavily about where they're going. Like very early on, before the season has even aired, they are writing short treks that are tying into things that are going to happen later on in the season, which is interesting. Yeah. So it's not like the one thing you can't accuse the show of is being sort of loosey-goosey with their plotting. Like not their plotting, but they're what they plan to do. It's not like a Lost situation. They clearly know where they're going and everything. And I think we've argued that's to a detriment. They know where they know so specifically where they want to go that it's kind of a problem. But maybe I guess I'll ask you. Let's do for the next episode, right? Let's do some like chance that you think this would happen. So, what do you think the % chance is that they jump to the future?
I want it to be like 85.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna be so mad if they don't.
What do you think instead of what you would prefer? What do you think the show is likely to do?
I'm trying to think about it that way, but I'm trying. Like, realistically, I feel like that's what has to happen. Like, it's the. I don't know. Because she has to make it back, right? Because she does the 2 other fucking red things. Let's put it this way. I think they jump to the future, but maybe not in the way that we're thinking.
Okay.
I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but that feels like this show to do that. What I would love to happen, because then you could use things that were fucking organic to your show, is, I've said this a million times, if you've got super powerful technology that is going to be the answer to your problem, you got to break it and use be more creative about how you solve the problem, because your super advanced piece of technology doesn't work. So what I would like to happen is that they the angel suit doesn't work, And so they have to plug the time crystal into the spore drive and use the fucking spore drive to jump into the future.
Yeah, right.
Because that way it's all organic to the show you've set up and the concept of the ship that you've been living with for 2 seasons that has become less and less important.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I still think I would still prefer I don't know. If they come back from the future, or if they don't go to the future and they still have to get rid of the ship, I would prefer what I said last week, where Stamets just jumps it into oblivion.
Yeah.
But they're not going to do that. So my second preference would be the Angel suit doesn't work, and they have to use the spore drive with the time crystal plugged into it to jump into the future. But I don't think that's going to happen, because we saw her get sucked into a wormhole, so apparently the suit works, I guess.
Yeah, she jumps into the the hell thing in Event Horizon, like the black pool. Well,
I'm sorry, that was a long-winded. We're just trying to do percentages here. The percentage that they jump to the future, I'm going to say they have to, because they've paid off every other short trek except the one in the future. So the ship has to get to the future.
Okay, so I'm going to say it's less likely. I'm going to say it's probably, I would give it like a 20% chance that by the end of the episode, the crew and ship are in the future. The short trek thing that's hanging me up is that the crew abandon Discovery at some point, right? Mm-hmm. If we're to believe that the short trek is correct, the crew disappear. That implies to me what's funny is that I almost have a harder time imagining that the crew will abandon the ship and have another ship named Discovery next year and then come back than I do them jump to the future and stay there forever. You know what I mean? So unless a duplicate of the Discovery is made, I think the crew comes back and they don't stay in the future.
Does the ship stay in the future?
Well, in the short trek, the ship says that it's been hanging out for 1,000 years, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. I was thinking about the ship would be there and then just is waiting, but that's not the case of what we learn in the short trek.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a possibility that they jump to the future and the ship stays, but then everybody else comes back, which would be stupid. But
yep.
Or I mean, if the ship's been hanging out for 1,000 years, they could just jump to the future and then eventually die, and the ship just exists.
Yeah, but I don't really care for any of those. I think that the ship staying there and the crew jumping back is most likely.
Sorry, say it again. I'm sorry.
I think them jumping to the future, the crew coming back, and the ship staying there is more likely than any of the other events, I think. Anyway.
Yeah, I think the other option is that one short trek was a red herring, which I think is fucking bullshit. And if that's the case, I'm done with the show.
Right, because it's either all or nothing, right? Like you can't make up some of the short treks and then use other stuff. I guess, and to tie this into an actual criticism of this episode, what did you think of the Poe inclusion from the short trek where the alien is now on this thing and she gives them the tech?
Sure, whatever.
I hated it. I hated it so much.
Again, no, I don't. The thing I don't like about tying in all these short treks is it creates extracurricular activities that you have to do in order for your story to work, which I don't agree with that stuff at all. I think this is the reason that I never liked extended universe stuff for Star Wars, like books and all that kind of shit, because it always ends up people being like, oh, the stuff in the prequels make a lot more sense if you read the books. And it's like, no, that doesn't count. It's not part of the story they're telling on the screen. So therefore, it does not count. Right. So, and if you have to read other stuff or watch other stuff for your story to make sense, you're not doing it right.
Yep.
There was a movie. Did you ever see Southland Tales?
No, I've heard of it. I don't think I've ever seen it.
Yeah, it's the follow-up from Richard Kelly, the guy who did Donnie Darko, where he got all this goodwill built up after Donnie Darko, and then he completely squandered it by making a movie that with a ton of stars that made no fucking sense. Yeah. And it was one of those things where it was like the first cut was like 3.5 hours long, and then he cut it down, and then there was like a 4 graphic novel series of prequel books that if you read those, the movie made total sense. And it's like, no, it's not. That's cheating. You can't do that stuff. That does not enhance your thing. Yeah. If you have to do all this extracurricular activity to make it work. And if that's, it feels like a cop-out, especially in a story like this, to have this external element that is more or less a Deus Ex Machina come in and have the technology to do what they have to do at the last minute.
Yep.
I would much rather they figure out some sort of crazy. I just want them to plug the thing into the damn ship. It makes the most sense. It would be so easy. You don't have to have 5 minutes of people sitting around the fucking box being like, well, if we do this, we can't do this, and all these other fake things that don't
make the whole
technobabble. It's like, just plug it into the ship like a fucking USB drive.
Yeah, my problem with the Poe thing is that what I thought the short treks would do they're kind of like little nuggets into. Even if I don't agree with it all the time, like I don't really care about what species invents the technology that recomposites dilithium, which is what that is all about. But it's like, whatever. That's a neat little. It's a short trek thing. It's like I'm checking out this 15-minute episode just to get like a little bit of a hint about like future canon or like past canon possibilities or ideas or something, and tying it in. It just feeds into the idea that like everything seems to be fated. Like everything that is important happens to the characters on this show. Like there's never anything that happens outside of the realm of these characters that will ever happen and ever amount to anything, because we will tell you literally everything that you need to know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I don't like it, because if you haven't watched those short treks, her showing up makes no sense at all.
No, but
it's just completely out of left field.
Like the tough thing about it is that like I'd be like, if I didn't see that short track, I'd be like, yeah, this is typical Discovery writing. Sure. Tilly knows this person who has the tech that'll fix it. Sure. That makes a lot of sense. Like that's the problem I have with predicting what the show is going to do.
Yeah.
When you're like, well, they have to do this because it's the only way that makes sense. We're sort of arguing against ourselves because the show doesn't care about that. And I think that the biggest thing going for them not paying off this goodbye episode is that Discovery loves the bait and switch. They love to be like, we're teasing everyone going to disappear. No, fuck them. They're not disappearing. Everything's back to normal.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hoping that they have the balls to jump them into the future and keep them there. But yeah, I think the chances of that are probably slim, because I feel like there's going to be a Marty McFly moment where he's in the DeLorean and he's getting ready to go back, and then he's like, wait a minute, I'm in a time machine. I can just go back an hour early and stop Doc from getting shot.
Right.
It's got to be something like that, because otherwise, probably what happens, I would assume, Burnham has to be on the ship. So unless something happens before they jump, which probably could be the Jet Reno thing, maybe that stops Leland from getting on the ship. But what I would assume happens is they jump into the future, and then they realize that Leland is on the ship when they jump.
Oh,
which doesn't actually make any sense, because then they still win, because then Leland is taking off the board and then Control doesn't get the information. So that doesn't make any sense. But I could see them doing that, and it's he kills everybody out of anger.
So
or something.
You think the big battle against Section 31 happens? That's where the Enterprise gets hit with the torpedo. Then they jump, and Leland tags along into the future. Not that you think, but that's what you're saying.
I guess. Although I guess they were the thing. The torpedo in the Enterprise was being perceived through the bridge of Discovery. So yeah, I guess they wouldn't have jumped yet.
Right. So they're, I think that they're seeing the future battle that's going to happen, and they're going to be racing against time to get Burnham through the time portal or whatever.
Well, I know this is kind of a stupid detail, and maybe you could chalk this up to the fact that she's having a vision, but I think she's wearing her Starfleet uniform in that scene, right?
Burnham?
And we end the episode with her dressed in that, puffy shirt to wear underneath the Red Angel suit.
Okay, so you're saying that when you're talking about when Leland breaks in and he like choke slams her, she's wearing her Discovery outfit.
I think so.
Yeah. And
again, I think you could chalk that up to, she's on the bridge in her Discovery uniform having this vision, so sure, let's put her in the, let's cheat that a little bit by not having her wearing the whatever. But I don't know.
So what about
I guess I don't know if it's to their credit or their detriment. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Are you, I'll save that. Let me do another probability thing here for you.
Sorry, one other thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing that bothers me is that Burnham knows that this is the future. This is she has seen this in the future, and in the midst of all of this, goodbyes and we're sticking with you and all that kind of shit, she never once tries to get them to not do that. Like usually what happens when you get these visions of the future where all your friends die is once these pieces start falling into place to bring this to fruition, you start fighting against it. And she doesn't do that. It's just like, we're all staying. And she's like, oh, guys.
It's going to be a great next hour. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I think that's why I'm a little bit, I can't quite figure out where they're going with it, because she's not being, the fact that she saw everybody get killed is not really weighing on her very heavily.
That's true. That's very true. Well,
but she's going to have some moment next episode, way deep into this process, where it's going to be like, wait a minute, this is just like what I saw in my vision.
Yeah, the deja vu moment is going to happen. Yeah,
and then she's going to use the time crystal to, save Doc from getting shot somehow. I don't know what they're going to do.
Does this episode and the way it panned out increase, decrease, or not change the likelihood that Control is a proto-Borg? I think it decreases it, but slightly. I still think it's likely that they're the Borg, but it decreases the chances that that's the possibility, I think.
Well,
I sort of thought they would have said something about it. Like this would have felt like the episode to reveal the Borg to the audience, I feel like.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, because if we think about what the outcome is here, possible outcomes that we were just talking about, if Control gets thrown into the future with the ship, it doesn't matter then, because then it can't be a proto-Borg because it's the future now.
Yep, definitely not the Borg.
I mean, if it gets thrown into the past, maybe. I mean, maybe they could pay that off with what they said about getting lost in the time stream and not knowing where you're going to end up. Maybe it's one of those things where they like kick Leland out of the back of the ship or something.
Right, he falls into a portal. Yeah, it goes.
Yeah, all of a sudden the subtitle says like 50 million years BC or stardate negative 50 million the Delta Quadrant or some shit like that.
Right, yeah, as the like primordial ooze is bubbling up and a little nanobot jumps into it. Yeah,
and then they cut to Q drinking a coffee, reading the paper, and he just goes.
Would because I bring it up because
Q back.
One of
they should bring Q into next season. If they jump into the future, they should use Q.
I think one of our listeners, Dwayne, brought up the thing that kind of would have reconciled it to me about being the Borg, which would be if the technology that develops Control was the Borg technology that they found in the Enterprise episode. That makes sense to me. It's very much a Terminator situation.
Yep.
And that to me, if it was the Borg, that's the only way you can do it that makes sense, I think, because that totally works with everything.
Or at the very least, it stops you from having it need to be the Borg because it could be its own thing.
Right.
Because it doesn't have to be literally the Borg. However, I think that would take too much explaining, even though you could do it in the case of 2 or 3 sentences. They haven't done it up to this point, and I don't think they're going to do it next episode. I don't think they're going to stop and be like, we just remembered that Control was based off of this unforeseen alien technology.
I see Leland having a Bond villain moment, and he explains everything, and you're just like, oh my God, the info dump is happening right here, and it is the Borg. Like, I see that within Discovery's purview.
Yeah, that's a good point, because, he's going to talk next episode, because he hasn't done anything in a while, so they're definitely going to have him talk. Yeah, I could see that happening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, for better or worse, I don't know how it's going to end. And I said last week that the difference between the first season and this season is I'm actually looking forward to seeing how things shake out, and I actually look forward to watching the show. And that hasn't changed, but I don't know. I don't feel like that feeling of, I don't know what's going to happen. I can't wait to see what happens is one of anticipation, because they just pull stuff out of left field all the time.
Yeah.
And they, like you said, they bait and switch things a lot. So it ends up not super being satisfying however it shakes out. But we'll see.
I wouldn't say I don't anticipate the next episode, but I'm more just like, I want it to come just so I can be like, okay, it's done. Like, I know the answer to what they've done. And it's not I don't watch the show with a real sense of like, oh man, I can't wait till next week when they're going to reveal all this stuff and it's all going to come into place. It's more, I'm watching it just going like, all right, like, how are you going to fix this? Like, how are you going to get out of this issue? Or like, where is this all going? And it's kind of, I mean, let's take a break and we'll do this with final thoughts, I guess, because we don't do the other rating. So we're going to play a clip. Me and Clay are going to come back and we're going to give our final thoughts of this episode, Such Sweet Sorrow.
Serving as your captain has been one of the greatest honors of my career. You are exceptional officers, exceptional individuals, every single one of you. Lieutenant Detmer and Owoshikin, I wouldn't be here if you hadn't saved my life on the way to that asteroid. Lieutenant Nilsson, you've stepped up for Ariam in a way that honors her. Lieutenants Bryce and Reese, you're calm under pressure. And Commander Saru, I'm gonna miss the hell out of you.
So what I was getting into before we took the little break is that the show's at kind of an interesting point with me, I think, in my relationship to it. I don't think I really like this show. Watching it is starting to feel a little bit like work in a way. And not that I'm saying that I wouldn't cover it, but it doesn't, all the things that people really like, the people who like it, all the stuff that people like will praise in its reviews and stuff, I really just don't see. Like, I really don't see what those people are seeing. And it's difficult to talk about, I suppose, because we run into this problem that we had in this episode where it's like, well, they could do it this way. On the other hand, this is Discovery's writing staff. So it's like the speculation is almost pointless in some ways, because the show does not have a great track record of being fair with you in that way. And that just really kind of lets you down when you get to the answer. And I'm really annoyed that we've made it to this final episode, which, as far as I know, is just a regular 50-minute episode, part 2 of this two-parter here, where they're just going to info dump on us like they did in the first season. It's just going to be the bomb down the well thing again. And it's not fun getting to that point. It's not fun spending 14 hours of TV, getting to the end of it, and then being like, okay, whatever, sure. Like, you wrap that up. We'll see you next year.
Yeah, I maintain, I don't know if I said this, I think I've said it a few times. I maintain that this show works best if you have not watched the episodes that have come before it. If you watch this episode and only had watched the previously on Discovery thing, I think this episode works a lot better, because that way you are predisposed to assume a lot of things that aren't actually true as far as character relationships and motivations and blah, 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 blah. Like, you know, you don't, when you have the computer or whoever say, control is after all the data from the sphere because it wants to become sentient. If you haven't watched the other episodes, you go, oh shit, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But if you've watched the other episodes, you go, that doesn't make any sense. This thing is sentient already. You know, you have all these questions that are, and problems with it because you've watched to see how they got to this point. And if you have all these scenes where you've got Michael and Tyler having this tearful goodbye, you're like, oh shit, they must have had like a really
tortured relationship right there.
Yeah, for the past 2 seasons that I've not seen. Nope. Not really. You know, so that stuff works better if the more in the dark you are, and I would argue that is not fantastic for a TV show. But I will say, I am going to first of all, do you think the Klingons are showing up next episode? I feel like Tyler's I need to get out of here before this starts thing is going to be him calling L'Rell and L'Rell scrambling the fleet or some shit like that.
I guess it could be. Right. Where's Georgiou at the end of this episode?
She's on Discovery, I think, because she beams Pike and Tyler off of the Discovery.
Yeah. She can't
So,
be there. She
I don't
can't be
know.
there either. If she's
It
gonna
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. She'll just show up wherever the story needs her to show up.
like Cornwall.
Because I actually laughed out loud when they cut to the Enterprise and Cornwall was sitting in the captain's chair. I was like, of course. I guess she walked over there before everybody else did, but I forgot she was on Discovery just fucking around somewhere because she wasn't on screen.
One quick tangent before your final thoughts.
Yeah.
What do you think of? Well, no, I'll say that. I won't distract you. I was going to say about like the Georgiou thing, but I think we've talked about it enough. I'm surprised how much Georgiou is now just comic relief in a show that's not particularly funny. If that's what her show is going to be, it's just very. The reason I bring it up is because if we understand that they are going to have a Section 31 show that stars Michelle Yeoh, she's another Spock problem of jumping to the future.
Or is she? Because she's part of Section 31 and nobody knows she exists.
Well, but she would have, like, unless they're going to have a show that doesn't star her at all, like, she has to go back to exist in that world, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, she exists, but she's Section 31, and that's Black Ops, and so nobody outside of that knows she's the thing.
Okay.
I don't know. Whatever. It makes about as much sense as anything else.
Yeah.
And my second thing was, I'm going to put based on the very little sample size I've seen and the fact that she is in charge for the next season, I am going to put my faith in Michelle Paradise that whatever happens in the next episode is going to be a setup for the third season, and that she has a plan to how to bridge that gap. Mm-hmm. And I hope her plan is something like, let's shake it up and move everybody to the future. I just feel like it can't just go back to status quo. Like, I don't know what else there is to do in this era.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could do some crazy, the longer you spend in this era, the further you have to get away from Star Trek continuity. And I don't mean that like breaking canon. I mean, like, they have to just be off on their own doing different stuff. Yeah. You can't just be, today we're going to meet up with, let's swing by the place where the Tribbles are from and shit like that. It has to be something more unique, and I think jumping to the future is the best option.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to say I'm going to take a leap of faith with her, and hopefully she lands the plane.
All right, we'll see, I suppose.
I guarantee you the Klingons are showing up, though.
Well, the Klingons, and yeah, we'll see. I'm trying to imagine whether or not if the jump to the future happens, it's probably going to inflate my expectations in a way that I'll only be let down in the future with. Like, if they jump to the future and they stay there, I'm impressed with that decision, I suppose. Even if I think it's possibly slightly disingenuous because they're trying to respond to fan comments about stuff, like about why the show is in this era to begin with. But at the same time, that's a fairly big change for this series, and I could see it being
Is it though?
Well, I could see it being a completely wiped chalkboard for the writing staff, where it's just like, okay, like, start over again. We've got a cast that we sort of understand what they're established as. Let's just do something different with it and go there.
Yeah, I mean, I could see keeping in line with the show. Let's say they jump into the future and then they reconnect with whatever the future version of Starfleet is, and then they get a new captain from that or some shit. Like, I don't know. You know, that seems
well, according to the short track, Starfleet doesn't exist anymore.
Well, okay, you're assuming that the jump happens to the point of the short trek. I think that there's a chance that is still further into the future than they go, because they've established that you can't blow the ship up.
Yes.
So I could see, let's say they jump into the future and then they have 2 or 3 more seasons or however long the show is on Discovery. And then
how far into the future
series,
are you talking about? Like, they jump like 100 years into the future or something?
Sure.
Okay.
Or past Next Generation, it would have to be.
Right. Sure.
And then at the end of the series, they just leave the ship adrift.
Yeah.
Because they can't blow it up. I mean, to be fair, they didn't try crashing it into anything. But I'm just saying they didn't try that hard to blow the ship up, okay? You could have pulled the Star Wars thing and had somebody light speed it into a sun.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep.
There's a lot of things they didn't try. I guess they didn't have time to go down the list. But because think about it. If you light speed the ship into the sun, if it doesn't, it either works and you probably have to sacrifice somebody to do it, or it doesn't work and that person doesn't die.
Right.
So, zero sum. Is that what that is? I don't know. I didn't learn from Arrival what that actually means.
Let's see. We've got one episode left. We're going to deal with it next week. It'll be the season finale of Discovery's second season. It'll be Such Sweet Sorrow Part 2. We're done with this one.
I did like Georgiou's. Georgiou as comic relief, I don't really know if it works. Just because I don't know if they've figured out the timing with her at the very least.
Yeah.
But I did like the line where she was like, "So let's just pick a star and blow up a star." And they're like, "You can't do that." And she's like, "Why not?" I dropped a bomb into Klingon and into Kronos, and it seemed to work great last time.
Stick with what you know. All right, let's. If you guys enjoyed the content today, you can check us out on social media. All the links are down below: Facebook, Twitter, Discord. You can support the show on patreon.com/thepenskyfile. Always appreciated. You can be like our Captain tier supporters who get a shout out here: Andrew Cherlog, Ben Douglas, Bradley Killens, Captain Quark, David K, Decker Sebastiani, Dwayne Hackett, Eric Johnson, Yarpy, Joint Mango, Kyle Barrett, Matt Flores, Matthew Cutler, Matthew Ross, Michael Pond, Mike Burnett, Nathan Elliott, Nick Sergi, Robert Cummins, Russ Graham, Samuel Custer, Grim Santo, Sean Spinobi, Stephen Cobb, Tarek Latif, and Will Yates. Thank you very much, guys, for supporting the show. We're going to be back with more DS9 coverage, more Discovery coverage. Clay, do you have anything you want to say before we sign off?
No, I was thinking about your Enterprise Borg tech thing and how he's probably going to make a speech about it. Yeah, you're probably not wrong. That's where that information would come out, but it's just so late in the game to have him talk about something that happened like 80 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it doesn't, again, it's a problem
unless you open the episode with a flashback or something. But it's sorry.
Well, it ties into who you're writing the show for. If you're writing it for old, bitter, cynical Star Trek fans, it makes sense to hold that information until the very end to keep people invested in guessing about it, right? If you're writing a story that makes sense for people who are new to it, you should reveal the Borg earlier, even if it doesn't mean anything to them, because then you can develop the Borg a little bit. Like, you can explain what their motivation is, why they're going about this way, what they're going to be in the future, what they hope to achieve. And instead, if it plays out this way, it's just going to be the final reveal that the show thinks is going to be impressive, and it's just going to be Leland saying resistance is futile, and that'll be it.
Yeah. Which is, I said a couple episodes ago, they should have done it. They should if that's what it is, they shouldn't have danced around it. They should have just been like, yes, this is some sort of Borg thing.
Yep.
Because I don't think it matters. I don't think having him give a speech about the origins of his technology, who cares? It doesn't matter.
No.
Like, even if whether he is the Borg or he isn't the Borg, it ultimately doesn't matter, and it's not adding anything to do it. So I don't think they should explain it.
Yeah.
I think it's past the point where that would make sense.
No, I would agree with you. And the thing that makes me think that they should have revealed it earlier is that listener Dwayne's explanation makes so much sense that, like, if you were going to do that, just reveal it immediately, because that works. It doesn't.
Yeah, talk about that the first time you talk about control when it goes haywire.
Yes, exactly. Just like Pike is like, "What is the origin of this technology?" And he's like, "Well, we did the blah 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 blah," and you go, "Oh, like, that's clever." Then you can spend the rest of the time thinking about it. But now we'll see what it is. Let's wrap it up there. Clay, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Guys, we will be back with more Discovery coverage. It'll be the season finale, and then we will give our final thoughts after that. I think the next week we'll do sort of a season wrap-up and stuff. So hopefully you're enjoying the series. Let us know what you think is going to happen in the finale. Let us know, by a show of hands, who thinks the show is actually going to jump into the future and stay there for at least the next season. So they'll be there at the start of season 3. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next time.